All right. Well, hopefully we finally got the bugs out of this bad boy. I have been playing with it uh, for quite a while now, and well, looking forward to hearing some feedback from you folks on how it sounds. But on my end, everything looks like it is a go. So, welcome, guys, to the Vicious Cycle Whiskey, Women, and Water podcast. This will actually make the first live streaming video um, for the series. I've done a couple little test runs that haven't really gone so hot. I tried one a little bit earlier today with the kids, and we were having a problem with the audio. And so I'm hoping that we got that sorted out. I did a few different things there. I'll tell you, I have been humbled by all the different podcasting and streaming things. Uh, I probably, like a lot of people take fishing, I took it for granted how much is really involved when you get to trying to do things at the next level or more professional level. And I won't lie. I have definitely been surprised at the number of roadblocks that I have encountered along the way. So the fact that this looks like it is going live looks like it's a good thing. So no one's joined me yet. Where the other ones, I had some people sign on right away, which I don't know if that was more of a sign that they just happen to be there, or if this is a sign that the couple false alarms people are like, what is this? But anyways, it's been a long day. And so been a long day, been a long process. And as Captain Bradcraft would always say at the end of a hard day, he said, let's go have a drink. Let's go do something we're good at. So I'm going to pour myself a drink. I got kids are in bed finally. Again, kind of a long day. And got my whiskey cubes for those of you in there. I like to load it right up. I like them cold. Oh. Oh, yeah. Just what dad needs after a long day. So let's get right into some questions that we got from the last time I asked questions, which was a couple days ago now. Let's see. We got, let's see. First question. I remember I had a good one right off the bat, and I'm probably blowing it on this. Nicholas. And I think this is probably, I believe this is a gentleman, Nick, who was helping me on the live stream before. He was pointing out that Vera's headsets and stuff just wasn't working. So anyway, let's see. Favorite SAT service, and do you think the marlin fishing is better on the Sea Mountains or around Kona? Boy, I wish I had a great SAT service, but I'll tell you, I have been routinely disappointed by all of them, and I have spent a lot of money. And I know the technology is getting better, but I have put a lot of money into a lot of different services. And I'm gonna have to be honest. I'm not sure what level you're asking about, but dollar for dollar, the best thing that I have experienced so far is the Garmin InReach. And although it's just a handheld texter, I found that it has amazing range. It's got, I mean, it's cheap. I mean, it's really, really cheap. I think I pay like $70 for unlimited for the month, and I mean that's just nothing compared to some of the SAT services I had. No, you can't actually talk, but I mean, modern day, most people are just texting anyways, so it's super helpful. It's compatible. It Bluetooths directly to your phone, which is really nice. So I would say if we're just talking like low end and you're just looking for like basic communications, I would recommend the Garmin InReach. I've been really, really impressed with those. I had some guys come on the boat from Alaska who use them at their bear hunting camp. And basically, after I saw how good their service was and how well they were doing, while I was having all kinds of trouble just getting my traditional text message out from my Iridium. I basically that's all I use now. Now I still have a sat phone for a backup, but I couldn't even recommend it. I have a handheld Iridium's terrible. It's awful. Like I mean, honestly, if you weren't required to have one, or just for that one limited time when you might actually need to talk something out, I couldn't recommend them at all. And at least in the handheld. Probably the best service I had before was like a Skipper 150, but they are, that's an Inmarsat, and they are plagued with problems too, and they're expensive. I mean, really expensive, but necessary if you're doing things like getting charts, like for long lining, or if you're doing some kind of crossing where you really need to see a more extensive weather chart. Then it's probably worth it. If you need live data like that. But dollar for dollar, the Garmin InReach is really very, very solid product. Let's see. What else do we have? The next question was, is the fishing better on the Sea Mountains or around Kona? Well, that's kind of a loaded question as far as marlin fishing goes. I think if people truly devoted time, I think if people truly devoted time into fishing on the Sea Mountain for a large fish, I think effort versus reward would be much, much higher than Kona because there's just a lot of days in Kona that you just don't get a bite. And so I think when we're talking big fish, I would think if you were actually targeting big fish, it would be a lot better. But I mean, Kona is a marlin spot. I mean, it's arguably the best marlin location on the Big Island. I wouldn't say, from my travels around the islands over the years, commercial fishing, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that it really stands out compared to some of the other spots around Hawaii. But what it has is it has accessibility to just about anyone. It's flat calm most of the year. So there's a lot of range. It's easy to fish comparably. So that being a factor. But I would say that, if you were really, really trying to catch a big fish, for the amount of money in other places that they throw at just going day fishing, I think if somebody had like an East Coast type program out of Kona, and they ran to like the same kind of distance that they do on the East Coast near daily, I think they would smash the numbers of big ones you got a year. I'm not sure that you would compete with overall numbers, but I think because of the biomass of tuna that are on the Sea Mountain and the larger marlin that are around them, I think if you really put your effort into catching big ones, I think you would just smash it. I mean, we run into them on a regular basis, and we don't really want anything to do with them when we are commercial fishing. And so I would say that if somebody devoted their time to it, I think they would outfish big fish. I haven't really seen the numbers of rats over the years inside or on the Sea Mountain compared to on the inshore. I mean, you do catch one here and there, and but I mean, really, we more frequently deal with marlin that are large enough to mess up the pile of tuna. So, I mean, for the most part, we're usually dealing with a larger fish. I would say that probably it doesn't mean they're not there, because we do catch some, but normally a fish that's big enough to harass a tuna school to the point where they're balling it up under the boat they're usually at least like 400 pounds. So most of the time when we're physically seeing them with our eyes, um, it's around there. It's around the school. So and they're usually bigger fish. So I think numbers wise, to answer that question, I think you're better off number wise fishing inshore. Um, but again, I could be wrong. But for big fish, I would definitely say the sea mountain fish is much better for effort for big fish. I think if you had any of those programs that threw money at marlin fishing out here like they do in other places, I think they would just blow away the numbers. I mean, we just see so many fish in excess of like 700 pounds, and that's kind of a rarity inshore. Not that you don't have them, and you do see big ones, but I mean, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon, especially when they're coming through in waves. It's not uncommon to have 5, 6, 7, 8 altercations with big ones on a trip, and our average trip is like 3 to 5 days out there. So um, I had talked to some guys in the past that said they were gonna target the sea mountain and give it a go, but I haven't actually seen any of those programs when you tell them there's fish out there, be prepared to go yet. So um, my guess would be at some point that we will get somebody out here that wants to break the status quo, and I have a feeling that they will really change the numbers on big fish in a season. I believe that just because a lot of years I think we catch probably as many big ones as just about anybody, and we're not trying to catch them. So I think if you put some effort into it, it would really I think it would really change that. Let's see. Good question. I see we got a few live followers right now. If you guys have any questions that I can answer, please feel free to ask them. Also, how's the audio sound, guys? I've had a couple test runs earlier today that were not great. So I'm hoping this is finally live. If you could let me know visually, audio, any comments would be greatly appreciated. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah. Let me know. Oh yeah. If you want to loop back and connecting over the phone. Yes, I do want to contact him over the phone. Let's see. Ooh, this is a great question. This is from Captain Chris Rubin. He's based out of Oahu. I saw he caught a nice fish. I happened to notice he caught a nice fish the other day on the news. Seven something. I think nice fish went down and died on him. Actually saw on Instagram that got a ton of line out on him, and he survived all that. Got down and dirty, and nice fish. It was 7 something. I don't remember exactly, but let's see. Do birds read current, and how do they know where to go in the morning? Sometimes there may be 1,000 birds, but not much bait. The next day, no birds. Sometimes 1,000 birds flying towards barbers and then change direction once they get out past the point. You know what? That is a fantastic question, and I wish that was in my skill set to honestly answer that without just being bullshitting you. I mean, birds have an uncanny ability to know where the fish are. I knew, well, I can think of a lot of great bird examples where people hunt birds. Like I know that my friend Tiny, um, when he was fishing around Bomb Bomb Island off of Africa, they had figured out that the fishing was very inconsistent. But if they were up early enough, if I hope I'm recalling the story correctly, and they saw what direction the birds left in the morning, and they could actually follow the birds out to where the fish would be, and they would be accurate like every day. Now, how they have that capability is beyond me. That is some type of sixth sense thing that they have ingrained in their system. I guess that's kind of almost like the same way that they're able to, uh, migrate great distances. I think they're absolutely incredible. I think about that all the time. One question I have, and since you were asking questions about bird, I always ask like, how many times in the morning do we see the same shearwater? Like we fish out around shearwaters all the time. So are we seeing the same shearwater. Like on my last trip, there was as many birds as I have ever seen on the seamount. And every afternoon they completely disappeared. Not a bird to be seen, not a bird in the binoculars in any miles, any direction. And, you can see 4 miles in any direction. But every single morning, right on cue, the sky was just absolutely full of birds. So, how far away did those birds leave in the afternoon and then get back and be there every morning? I really wish I could answer that question for you, because I'm always amazed by what the birds are able to do. So I think that is a great question, and I will try and look into that for you, because personally, I would really like to know that myself. Why is that why is that? I don't know. I really don't know. I wish I could answer that. And let's see, what was the other part of that question? Um, Flying towards the barber. Sometimes there's 1,000 birds flying towards Barber's Point and then change direction once they get out past the point. Man, I don't know if birds can tell the direction of the current or not, but it's incredible to watch that they do know where to go. So I'll look into that, but I'm not sure who to ask. But I do know some ornithologists. I've been working with some different bird people, so I will definitely look into that. That's a great question. I know they have an uncanny ability of being in the right place at the right time. I find it amazing. One thing we see offshore, and this is another. Okay, it's the opposite of when they all disappear. It can be that you won't see a bird all day. We start trolling, say 7:30, 8 o'clock. Won't see a bird all day. But at 4:30 in the afternoon, and 4:30 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, sometime before sunset, which is kind of like big eye prime fishing time for us, is right before dark. We're looking for evening rush. You'll find a bird pile in the same spot at the same time over and over again, and you won't have seen a single bird all day. There won't be a bird all day, but say 2, 3, 4 days in a row, there'll be a bird pile in the same exact spot every afternoon in a row, but like no birds leading up to that. So how did they get to that place in the first place? That's beyond me, but it is incredible how dialed in they are. That's also another question, like the fish. Okay. Let's say the current's saying the same direction, right? Just for an example, the current hasn't really changed. And what I find incredible is how often, especially when you're talking about with schooling fish, how often the fish will be in the same exact spot every morning, or roughly, let's just say it's like 9 a.m., okay, or whatever time of day it is, and that you found a pile of fish. Now, I'm always amazed by how often a school of fish will be in the same exact spot at the same exact time, but will leave. It could go in a spider web of different directions. It could go any direction at all, right? And it seemingly just goes off, disappears, and then the next day you'll find a pile that's in the same exact spot, and it's just amazing to me that it forms in the same spot over and over again. And a lot of times, right? So we'll follow a school of fish for a long, long time. And we know they're the same fish. We'll see a fish that literally has marks on it. It's faces. Sometimes their jaws are ripped. There'll be a pink spot on them where they've had some damage, or they have a distinguishing feature on them. Like sometimes, for example, because commercial fishing, we're selling to a graded market. And so sometimes a school will have a fish that is like highly damaged. So you don't want to keep it, right? Like its whole back will be messed up, or it has like a huge scar. Like I can remember this one fish that was hanging around that we kept seeing. I don't know. We must have seen it for like 5 weeks straight, because no one was going to keep it because the scar on the back went across both loins. And what I found so interesting about that is that you could keep thinking that you found a new school of fish, and then there would be that ugly thing again. And you're like, wow, how does that happen? Well, you could follow that fish. Sometimes like we'll find a school and then might follow it 11, 12, 13 miles off the sea mountain, right? You think you'd never see that fish again, but then the next morning it would be with a completely different size class of fish in the same location. So how did that fish know either how to get back to that same area? That kind of stuff always blows me away, you know? So hold on one second. What's up, buddy? Got up out of bed? What's wrong?
Can't go to sleep.
Well, it's bedtime, buddy. You know it. So you're gonna have to go back to sleep.
What is this thing?
That's a grasshopper. Pretty cool. Yeah. Try to go back to sleep. If you can't go to sleep, I'll stop this and I'll come lay down with you. All right, buddy?
Okay.
All right. Love you. Oh, sorry about that. Little kid break. My one child is having a hard time sleeping, I guess. He just got up. So sorry about that. If any of you guys are watching this right now and you're on YouTube, if you could do me a favor and just leave a comment and let me know that that the audio portion and the video looks all right, that would be greatly appreciated. This is really my first test run at doing a live with everything hopefully a go. And so if one of you guys could comment on that and just let me know, does sound good, doesn't sound good, looks good, doesn't look good, it would be greatly appreciated. I know what I'm seeing on my side, but I'm not so sure what you guys are seeing on your side. So if anyone could comment on that, it would be greatly appreciated. Man, I really wish I had a better answer for the bird question because they are absolutely incredible. Let's see. There was another great question. That is a totally inappropriate question. Okay, we're not going to put that one on, although I can appreciate that. Do you catch any larger escolar and oilfish, and have you eaten them? That's a great question. Yes, we catch lots of them. The audio and video is great. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. And sounds good. All right, greatly. All right, awesome. I appreciate that. Yes, we catch lots and lots of oilfish when we throw gear or if deep dropping, especially now that I have been experimenting quite a bit with dropping for swords. We get absolutely covered up with rough skin wallow, which is also known as like a pineapple wallow. And so we have no market for them on the Big Island at all. They're not worth anything. They come up and they are just angry and mean. Those things are so nasty. I'll tell you how bad they are sometimes with the rough skin wallow. I have caught like an 80-pound rough skin wallow that has a 60-pound rough skin wallow hanging on its tail, that has a 40-pound rough skin wallow hanging on its tail, which has like a 50-pounder, and on and on. I have literally caught 5 of them. One's hooked on the line, and there's another 4 of them trying to eat the other one's tail off it. They are like a terribly evil creature. Like they're kind of like squid. I don't know if for people that haven't done a lot of squid fishing, but squid will be swimming side by side with each other, right? But the second you hook one, their buddy will turn on them and try and eat them. It's like the wildest thing. They have absolutely, they have no remorse. It's like the second they see one of their friends in peril, it becomes fair game. They're gnarly. They're absolutely gnarly. So yeah, so with the rough skin wallows, we see lots of those. We used to sell them when I sold off fish on the auction in Honolulu. We would sell them. I think I want to say the most I've ever brought in, because the price on them will quickly drop. I want to say the most I ever brought in, I brought in like 13. They take up a lot of space. The average one we catch is like 60 to 75 pounds. And they take up a lot of space, and they're generally low value. I think the most I ever got, I got like $3 one time, and someone must have just been really desperate for a whitefish replacement. For a while, we were getting around $1, which was, if you have the room in the boat and you've caught it anyways, you know, it would just be a little bit of more money on the total. But what would happen sometimes if you brought in too much, you'd get like, I've seen it where the market's flooded, and they'll get down to like 10 cents, which that's obviously not worth your time, especially because the rough skin wallows, man, they come up. They're so lively. They're so lively. Now, their cousin, the smooth skin wallow, which generally has a much higher value. I've gotten as high as $10 on those. I've got a real big one too. It's like, I want to 126 or 128. Really nice fish. I didn't get that much money for that one at a time. The price on that stuff wildly fluctuates. And especially for people who don't know much about Escalar, Escalar's trade name, okay, which is the smooth skin wallow. Sometimes you'll see it in like a sushi restaurant as butterfish, which is kind of a misuse because they're kind of playing the word butterfish generically. Or what you'll see is super white tuna is the trade name that you'll see. Now, super white tuna, in my opinion, is like super dangerous. It's probably what they should call it. What wallow is really known for is they have these wax esters in their meat. And basically, the human digestive system can't properly digest them. So what happens is that when you consume the fish, you put it into your digestive system, your stomach can't handle it, and basically it flushes it. And so legally, and you don't often see people doing this, but legally, if you're selling Escalar, it is supposed to be in the menu that, and I quote, may cause anal seepage, which, as you can imagine, as a restaurateur, probably is not the most appealing thing to have on your menu. The question was, have I ever eaten it? Oh my God, have I ever eaten it? And me and Nate have a great story about this, right? So me and Nate Carey, absolute legend, we're fishing together. We were just doing a 2-man trip, and fishing was good. Like, it was pretty good. Like I recall, like it was good the first day, hand lining and then throwing the gear. And we had decided we caught a little one, like a maybe 8-9 pounder. And Nate's like, man, we should try this thing, And we had been working all day, like just like, we, typically we work about 21-hour days, right? So normally, and honestly, sometimes back in the day, I've gotten better about this, but it wasn't uncommon for me to be up, 2-3 days in a row just to fill the boat and get done. But so anyways, the point of where I'm going with this is that normally by the time we would eat, we'd be starving, right? So you're not supposed to eat more than 3 ounces at a whack. And so Nate makes up this delicious meal. And this is the thing. It is good. Like, it is so dangerously good. Like that, this is what gets people. And I think we both ate like almost a full fillet. And again, you're supposed to only eat like 3 ounces. And I can remember the conversation like, oh man, those guys, they're fucking us, man. We're getting ripped off on these things. Like, yada, yada, yada. Just like, dude, just like calling total BS on the fish buyers. Like, just come on, man. There's no fucking way that, like we're getting screwed because they are delicious, right? Like, they are so good. Like, they're so good. Well, well, I my stomach starts feeling a little not so great the next morning, right? And it's probably about like we had that at dinner, we night fished, and my stomach started kind of started feeling not so hot. And 8 or 9 next morning, I find a pile, and we start dangling, and I'm like, I'm like, I think I just shit myself. And I was just like stunned. Like, I literally just like, it was just like, I don't know, just all of a sudden there was like this liquid, and then it was in my boot. And Nate goes, oh man, I'm glad you said that. He's like, I shit myself about 30 minutes ago. I'm like, oh my God. So like me and him both got taken down, and this stuff is gnarly, dude. Like, so I'm trying to dangle, and it is totally true. Everything it says about like may like if you, especially if you eat the like completely unresponsible amount that like me and Nate ate, it is shocking. It is absolutely shocking. Like there's just no control. And like in our case, we go to the bathroom like let's just put it this way. If you look down, there's an oil slick like in the bucket. Like it's just awful. So I would eat any of that stuff with a unbelievable amount of caution. I got like, especially even like if it was old, especially if it was old. I mean, we had it as fresh as you could, and we did eat more than we were supposed to, but it completely wiped us out. It was really, really bad. So I've eaten it, and I won't eat it again. I think I ate one piece of sashimi of it afterwards. Like someone's, oh, you got to try this. I had a piece, and then they told me what it was, and I'm like, I'm not eating that again. So I think I dodged the bullet. I had one more slice. Someone had cut some up one day at the auction, but I would definitely use that stuff with a great deal of caution in my experience. Good question. Let's see. That's a question about a rental that has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Oh, I tried to answer this question before. I actually got my daughter. I was playing with my daughter earlier on the podcast and trying to get her to answer the question and just see how it would all work out. But we had some audio issues, and it didn't really go how I was hoping it would. But the question was asked, what effect being offshore has on my children? And I thought the best person to ask was one of my children on that. And unfortunately, we didn't really get the response, or the question didn't really come off in a way that my 7-year-old daughter understood, because it kind of got to the bottom of, from her perspective anyways, that's just how it's always been. That's just how it is. Dad's gone offshore, dad's gone fishing, and that's just the life she knows. And so, I probed a little bit. I wanted like a really open and honest answer. And she said she misses me, but I understand. I miss her too. I miss my kids all the time. That's one of those things. You don't even have to be out at sea for that. I mean, for other people like myself that are, separated from the mother of the children, I think most guys go through that on a regular basis. I think we all have those things. So I don't think that at least at my daughter's age, it's noticeable. I do believe, though, just from knowing lots of other fishermen and growing up with other fishermen whose dad was a fisherman and parents were away, I think it does get noticeable, particularly when the kids get just a little bit older. I've tried to make a really big effort, especially over this last year, to be home more, for the kids, and not just for the kids, for myself too, because it's not just for the kids, it's for me too. It's very rewarding. I love being around them. It's, but it is hard. Sometimes it's anyone who's ever lived in the commercial fishing world, you don't catch fish from the couch, you don't pay your bills from the couch. So it can be really hard. I mean, I think every fisherman has had that conflicted feeling before, where you want to be there for your kids, but you also want to be, you still got to pay the bills. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's a lot of people out there, fishermen and fisherwomen, that would like to be at home every night, but that's just not a reality of the business, you know? And so I think, I think I think we all do our best we can with that scenario, and I hope that providing for my children financially uh, and devoting as much time as I can for them ultimately will be a win. Hopefully they'll appreciate that, and hopefully I don't miss too much. That is definitely something I think about all the time too. I mean, I would be lying. I've said it. If you read my book, you know, it's the time lost out at sea. That that clock is pretty easy to register, but the time that you lose on land is very muddled. It's very hard to know what you're missing when you're gone, because when you go offshore, you know, I think a lot of guys would agree that, you know, life is like a snapshot when you get offshore. You remember it a certain way, even though life just keeps on going. You know, you may be just cruising at 10 knots or whatever, but I mean, but life just keeps going and it goes by fast. So, to answer that question, I'm sure being offshore does have some effect on my children, but I am doing my best to support them, do what I love, and still be fulfilled and pay the bill. So hopefully that answers your question, and hopefully I'm doing a good job. I'd like to think I am. I certainly try. I know I come up short sometimes, but I always try. So I hope that's recognized at some point. I love my kids very much, and I hope they know that. Let's see. Next question. What do we got? Got Casper Bruins. Some of these questions are a little bit ridiculous. Spare you guys. Let's see. Here's a Tay_Oceanski asks, do the yellowfin eat flying fish in Hawaii like the bluefin eat them in California? Wondering if you ever target the bigger models with yummies or dead flyers. Okay, great question. Yes, they 100% eat flying fish. A lot of times they're completely full of them. Inshore, okay, there's almost two different fisheries there's three if you consider longline in the state of Hawaii, but basically there's almost two different fisheries as far as hand lining goes. A rod and reel. I'm going to group rod and reel fishing into hand line fishing, but hook and line fishing basically, right? You've got your inshore fishery and you've got your offshore fishery. And so I would group offshore fishing also into like guys who fish fads, with danglers and a higher volume fishing. And then I would say the inshore fishery, generally speaking, is more like your trollers. You got it's normally less bites but higher quality. You normally get less shots per day, but you're generally fishing for bigger fish. Flying fish are kind of a wild thing. So yellowfin definitely eat them. I have tried them off a kite, but the issue that I run into offshore is that I fish around so many small fish that it's very hard to effectively weed past the small ones for the effort. So for me, a lot of times the effort doesn't pay off. That being said, inshore, it might really, really work. If someone puts some effort into it, I don't know, but they definitely eat yellow. I mean, the yellows definitely eat flyers. I mean, there's no question. There's stuff full of them. It's very similar to the green stick in some ways out here with presenting the lure from above. Again, inshore, a lot of times the green stick could be very effective. You're shooting for a higher quality, larger fish, lower numbers, where a lot of times if you run the green stick around, like say an offshore like fad or out on the sea mountain, it has some days where it pays off, but a lot of times at least on the like out on the sea mountain, you get completely covered up with small ones. You just spend all day getting shakers and little ones and things like that that cover up your hook. So it kind of goes again down to like effort versus reward. I think there's definitely some more exploration that could go into it out here. But yeah, also it's a neat thing about the flyers, neat or not so neat, depending on how you look at it. But the big guys don't particularly seem to care for them. Not that they wouldn't eat them because you do find them, but often at night you'll get a live one in the lights, and we'll get all excited and we'll scoop it up and we put it out, and we can have a full on wide open blast off. Like every line is going off one after another on the hand lines. We fish 4 lines, 2 float lines, a lead line, and a Maki dog, and every line will be going wide open. And then you put a live flying fish on it, thinking you're going to blast off a bigger one out of the school, and then nothing happens. And nothing happens. And then you think like, oh, the thing they must have gotten it. The bait must be gone. And then you pull it up, and thing's still lively and great. You throw it back. Meanwhile, your other 3 lines are going off. And for whatever reason, for big eyes, it just does not. You just don't catch very many with it. I don't know why that is. Particularly at night, they're really, really dialed in on the squid. I will say though, the flying fish, I've caught some big yellows with it, and I have caught a few big eyes. I'm not going to say I haven't caught any, but not too many. Not for the effort, not versus like a fresh squid. Those things just absolutely love squid. But normally, if I have a live yellow, I'm sorry, if I have a live flyer, it's usually going to get, if it's going to get eaten at all, it's going to be eaten by a yellow. It's like almost never gets eaten by a big eye for whatever reason. It's kind of neat. I mean, years ago when I first moved out here, this guy taught me how to catch them. And I don't know if any of these guys are doing this on the West Coast yet, but basically it goes back to like a trick from sailing days, but that you can illuminate it like a sheet. And if you go slow, if you know somewhere where there's a lot of them around, obviously that's helpful, right? But obviously that's helpful. But if you don't, you kind of have to cover some ground. But basically, you only need to go like 1.5 knots, 3 knots, which is like just in gear, and you put up a sheet, or like sailboats are really good at this already naturally, right? Like naturally, they're already really good at this, and you illuminate the sail. Like with the sheet, like on a smaller boat, you need to kind of try and frame it up, kind of like get it squared up as much as you can, and try and get as much ground, like kind of make it, like this green screen behind me, I should say, like basically you try and get like a big of an area as you can, and you want to illuminate it, and either put like a light directly facing into it or on the bottom of it. And like a lantern works pretty good. Like just make sure you don't burn your sheet. Like if you get like a Coleman lantern, that luminescence, that natural white light works really good. And basically you turn off all your other, you can leave your running lights on, obviously, because you want to be legal and everything. But you turn off all your other deck lights and everything, and you just illuminate the sail or the sheet that you put up. And basically you just slowly go along, and you would be amazed if you're in like a flying fish rich area. You would be amazed how many of those things just go fucking flying at you. It's a super, super effective technique. Why they're drawn to jump into that thing, I cannot tell you. I don't know what causes that, but I can tell you that if you're in an area that has a lot of flying fish, you can clean up on it. And then normally, like, we would have like a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket or a tub or whatever it is you're using. And you just, they hit the sail and they're flapping. There's not much to them. Like, grab them and put them in the bucket. And yeah. And then easy as can be, really. If you're using them for dead bait anyways, probably doesn't matter, but maybe putting them in the bucket would be maybe it'll be a calmer death for them. So you don't knock off all the scales and everything. Because like any dead bait, the presentation is really what's important. You want I always say the better the bait, the better the fishing, right? So the more effort you put into taking care of your bait, the better the net gain in the long run. You know, I'm a huge proponent into focusing lots of effort in bait. I'll spend, I'll, I mean, sometimes you spend 6-7 hours focusing on just catching fresh squid or fresh bait, having less fishing time per se, but having really good bait. And so being more efficient when we get in there. I always think there's nothing worse than having fish under the boat and nothing to catch them with. So I put a lot of emphasis into really focusing on having good bait. So maybe that'll be helpful. Someone who's listening to this, I learned that like 20 years ago, and it works. Why it works, I don't know, or at least it works around Hawaii. So it's a good technique. Maybe one of those places where the flying fish, where every one of them is a big fish, maybe that will be helpful for somebody out there. They can convert that into some caught fish. I hope, you know, everything to help. What's that? John O'Brien. The guy who's selling in SoCal for $30 a pop would be pissed that he heard this. Huh. Well, I don't. Sorry. Maybe he can. Maybe he can use them. Maybe he can catch more to sell. I don't know. Let's see, Ryan. Why are the new fads breaking off so quickly? And one buoy has bullet holes after a new replacement. Other commercial fishermen doesn't want it stable to market. Give them a chance for fish to grow. Why are the new fads breaking off so quickly? And one buoy has bullet holes after a new replacement. Other commercial fishermen doesn't want it stable to the market. Give chance for the fish to grow. I'm on Kauai. Okay, so I actually know quite a bit about this whole subject. So the gentleman who sets the fads is Randy Cates. He's a really nice guy. He helped me out when he's helped me out a couple times. First time I met him wasn't under the best circumstances. He was the salvager who was hired to bring in my first boat after it capsized. That was who the insurance company contracted to tow the boat in. And so that's how I initially met Randy. And he treated me very, very kindly on all parts of that. He worked with me really well, getting the old boat in. So that's how I first met Randy, and I've stayed in contact with him. Randy also was super, super, super important to my new boat. What a lot of people don't know outside the state of Hawaii, but commercial fishermen have found out the hard way, is that for an island state, we have an extremely, extremely anti-fishing government. And there's a lot of strange politics involved in the fishing things. But I don't want to go too far off this gentleman's question. But long story short, when I got my second boat, third boat, the new Vicious Cycle, the Department of Transportation wasn't going to let me bring the boat into the harbor like all the other boats. They were trying to put up this block to let no new boats go in, and they were trying to use me as an example. And it took me, and it was really hard at first. It took me like 2.5 months, or maybe almost 3 months, to get my new boat in the harbor. And that would not have happened if it wasn't for Randy getting Senator involved to make it happen, because the way the funding works in the state, like in the federal harbors, they can't deny access to other boats. But there was people in the office that were trying to basically have their own rule. There's been an agenda to move the fishing boats out of the harbor, out of Honolulu Harbor, for a while. But there's the whole fishing village there and everything. So it's a really strange thing. So I owe Randy a huge debt of thank you on that. And so I didn't answer your question, but I just wanted to back up why I know so much about this. So Randy is responsible for setting them. And the funding, which a lot of people don't realize, comes from a tax on sporting goods, fishing goods, gear, things like that. So when you buy a reel, you buy, hook, whatever, from whatever sporting good institute in the state, a portion of that goes towards this fund. I would be butchering it right now. It sounds like the Dingerheimer Fund or something. It's the Robert Lingle Fund or something like that. I'm butchering that part. But anyways, so a portion of all your money from any piece of sporting goods you get goes towards this fund. And that's where the money goes. Now, what a lot of people think for the reasons that some of them are breaking off is not totally correct. First of all, one thing you guys have to know, Randy, although he sets the buoys, okay, he does not set up the ropes and splicing and everything. That is done by another gentleman and the guys who work for him. So when Randy gets the fads, they're already set up. And so sometimes what happens is that, so say depending on what state, what part of the buoy, like what part of the state you are, we all know they have the different state funded fads. Those are fish aggregate devices for those of you listening who might not be familiar with this concept. They're these buoys that are put out to attract fish for both commercial fishing and subsistence fishing. That's really the thought process behind them, is that these buoys are put out so any uncle, auntie, uncle wants to go out for the day. Hopefully they can go out. These things attract fish. They can catch some fish to take home. That's really the thought behind them, right? The idea is that it's fish for the people, right? That's really the concept behind them, and that's why the funding goes towards it. Okay, commercial fishermen use them too. So the thing though is that Randy doesn't set up the measurements on the buoys, right? The state does. Sometimes those guys, okay, they get the scope wrong. They come on. If you ever saw any pictures of this, and I wish I had, and I will in the future with my new switcher, I'll be able to like flip over and show you guys exact photos of this. I'm not far off on that. I'm like super close. Randy gets all the buoys. They're already in crates. All the rope and everything's out. So what's believed on some of these last ones is that basically it was a miscalculation from the get-go. Randy has nothing to do as far as the scope goes. That's not him. He just goes to the location that he's hired to set them, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's got, he sets out buoys, like he's in charge of the NASA buoy, and he knows what he's been doing. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for 30 years. They're not like misset. If there is a problem with them, it's coming before he even gets them. And that's coming right from the program itself. Now, the question was, so the other question is why some of them have bullet holes. Yeah, it's a really shitty thing. I can tell you exactly why some of them have bullet holes in them, and it's a real prick move if you ask me. Basically, it's just what you think it is. It's somebody's got a private buoy not far from or close to where the state buoy is, and they want to eliminate that buoy so people don't go out there looking for it. Basically, they figure, the less people that are in that area, that'll be less people that will see them go into their buoy, or accidentally come across their buoy. So, I mean, if you see bullet holes in them, it's exactly what you think it is. It's sadly somebody sabotaging it because they don't want them near your private buoy. OTEC is a great example of that. OTEC buoy on the Big Island always has, like, my commute is from Kona to, from Kona to Oahu. I do that 50 times a year, right? And so there's lots of stuff up there, and I don't really get involved with the fad drama. The stuff's everywhere. I mean, it really is. But in my opinion, that's why OTEC gets bullet holes in it, is this, that there's a lot of stuff up that way. You get rid of OTEC, then people aren't going to go up there. They won't see you running towards your buoy. That's my thought process on it. I myself have witnessed that. I've seen buoys with bullet holes in it. So yeah, it's definitely, sadly, somebody sabotaging. It's shitty. It's really shitty. There's always somebody, I guess, that wants to ruin it for everybody. I don't know why, but that's just that if that's what you were thinking, you're exactly right. That's why people do it. Sadly, it's a real bummer. Especially because it takes a long time to put them back. I think, and I've talked to Randy about this, also the top design, Randy, if it was up to Randy, and he would have a different top, right? The top design is flawed. But again, that's not up to him. All that stuff comes from the state, and they're like dead stuck on using that same antiquated system. Now, for anyone who's thrown a buoy, and like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I haven't done it, because I have. I think at some point, most commercial fishermen try to build their own little oasis, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I actually got away from them just because I got super into beach cleanups. And one day I was doing a beach cleanup, and the big fucking disaster on the beach was one of my buoys. And I thought, well, I guess I can't really be doing that anymore. And so basically, that was the end of throwing fads for me. I was thinking, like, here I am putting my effort into cleaning something up that literally I put in the ocean. And so for my own environmental footprint, I stopped doing it. I don't fault anybody for it. I understand. But every time you throw a buoy in 3,000 fathoms of water or 2,500 fathoms of water, you're literally throwing like 5 miles of rope in the water, which is primarily plastic. So that's why I got out of it personally. But they can be wildly effective. I mean, you can catch a lot of fish on them. I just fished the weather buoys myself now, the NOAA buoys and the Sea Mountain, and a couple other little pinnacles out there I like to play with. And yeah, and so that's the bottom line on that. They have a poor top, they have a poor design. They should have something that's far more hydrodynamic. But again, it's the people in the state office that have just you know how the state is, like anything. How many antiquated things are there in the state where we know it could be better, but we just don't do anything about it because that's just how the state operates? Well, it's the same case with the tops. Those tops are antiquated. And in fact, if you ask me, they're a huge waste of taxpayer dollars in that respect, because anyone who knows anything about throwing fads knows that you could put a different top on there. You get a lot more longevity out of it, and the taxpaying dollars would go much, much further. So I don't know. It's sad. I mean, the person who says, Randy's on the same page with me. I know that he wants to see a different design too. So if the person who, I think his name's Walter, I don't want to call anyone out, but I know Randy's had that conversation. I think that anyone who's thrown any amount of fads knows that they need to have a different top if we want any longevity out of them. Also, where they have them located, they could do much better. There's some buoys that just have never bit historically, and they haven't really moved them. They haven't done anything with them. In my opinion, the FAD program probably needs a good looking over. I'd like to see them try and use some more sustainable materials personally. As it is, why not some form of manila? They can't get their buoys to stay for any amount of time anyway. So why not use something biodegradable? That was something I brought up. I mean, let's keep throwing them, but let's throw them with biodegradable materials. So then we're not, having them end up on the beach or washing up on someone else's beach, or, that would be my thought process. If I would say, let's keep throwing them, but let's get a better top design and let's use biodegradable material. I think that's the future. I think that'd be the win-win for the environment and the fishermen. Any other questions on that, Ryan? I hope I covered that. It's about, oh yeah. And the FAD program, as long as we're talking about that, also some of the delays on the FAD issue is that we have a lot of environmental problems coming up with that. There's been a couple of lousy things that have happened that have drawn a lot of attention. There are a lot of pros and cons to the internet, YouTube like this. On the one hand, we get so much knowledge, and we have access to so much knowledge and things that we couldn't get before. But on the other hand, some of the worst parts of things get aired. And I know firsthand, because of kind of the circle I run in with a lot of the stuff, there's been videos of interactions that were inappropriate with protected species around the fads that have drawn a lot of criticism, particularly with oceanic white tips, which are on the threatened list. The amount of videos and stuff that they found when they were auditing of people hurting them was not great. And then There was one particular video that some of the whale people got their hands on of guys hooking a false killer whale off Maui around a state buoy, which drew a lot of negative attention as well. So I know that was part of the delay on some of that stuff. They're doing environmental assessments on a lot of that stuff. So I know that's part of the problem as well. Hopefully we can get that all figured out. I think this is a kind of like that sad example with the bullets, that a lot of times it's like one or two people doing something negative that hurts everybody, unfortunately. And hopefully we can keep those interactions to a minimum, or at least don't post them on the internet. It would be highly recommended for anyone that would do that. Let's see. You are welcome. I am happy to answer the question. Let's see. Ryan, other question. The full moon phase. Maybe you're retyping it. I'm not sure. It cut out. I saw something about full moon. I didn't see the whole thing, but I'm happy to answer any moon phase question that I can to the best of my ability. Fishing full moon phase for ahi. Yeah. Hell yeah. Why not? So like when I go fishing, the moon, I don't, how do I say this? In my opinion, there is a time of day where the fish bite just about every day. So I think for the location you're fishing, you just need to figure that out. Like these days, especially having kids, right? Like in my time schedule, like I have my children in the beginning of the week, like I don't pick and choose what moon cycles I go on. I just go. I just have to make it happen. And so, yeah, I mean, the thing about the full moon is the hero or zero play, right? So like you can strike out, but also you get your biggest hits on the full moon, right? So like, especially if the current's running, like, because the problem with the full moon a lot of times is that the current gets all wishy-washy and wonky, and the fish lose direction, and then it's kind of hard to know where they are, or they're acting kind of strange. My biggest thing with the full moon is I'm always just looking for current, right? So if on the full moon, if I'm going to target something, I'm looking for like a break. Like I'm looking for something where the current is moving fast, and that would be my recommendation. I'm looking for as much run as I can find on the full moon, because a lot of times you either have, in my opinion, one of the reasons why the fishing falls apart is because you get that really weird tides. You get like big tides, but then like the fishing area kind of gets all like dirty and like churned up. And if you're Ikashibi fishing, you're doing circles and donuts. My opinion would be on the full moon, try and find somewhere that has as much run as possible. Not necessarily, how do I say this? Yeah, I mean, basically I'm just on the full moon. I'm just trying to find as much current as I can find, even if that's not necessarily where I normally think is my best fishing. I'm looking for as much speed as I can find on the full moon. I want to find the fish that I do come across are working hard enough where the metabolism's up that they want to feed. That's my thought process on it. All of my biggest trips are, offshore, all on the full moon, every single one of them. But my toughest trips are also on the full moon. So I think it's kind of like one of those, got to roll the dice. But yeah, I don't fear any moon phase. I just think that you need to maybe adjust your thinking sometimes with the moon, trying to think about what time they may be fishing, they may be biting, and where. Also, like if you're talking, like one thing particularly around the island, so we fish a lot. We're always on transiting, right? Or we always have lures out, and you get across a year, right? You're going to get 95% of your night bites trolling on the full moon, like, or the days on both sides of it. I mean, we always have stuff out, but I definitely catch 95% of the fish that we catch trolling at night on the full moon. So, maybe when you think about the full moon, instead of, I wouldn't think of it so much as not going fishing. I would think of it maybe more as trying to adjust the time of day to what you're catching. Also, like the full moon itself, right? Like when you have the sunrise or the moon set and the moonrise, and it's right exactly like at sunrise and sunset, that is a hard day. But sometimes people think it carries over more days, right? So like even the next day, like all of a sudden you've got like that 45-minute wedge before the moon rises, right? So you got like roughly 45, 50 minutes. And then each day after that, it gets a little bit bigger. For me, I would focus more of my time, and this is what I do, right? I focus more of my time into those hours, right? Instead of like packing up shop, the first, like, say, like the first two, 50 minutes to 2 hours into the dark, that's a lot of my best fishing. Whereas most people have already run home. That's when I would be putting most of my effort into it, honestly. That would be my tip. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I catch lots of fish on the full moon, but you just have to change your thought process a little bit, maybe on when they're gonna bite. I put lots and lots of effort into trolling in the dark, either before the sun comes up and before the sun sets, and it's hard to videotape, but I catch lots and lots of fish during those times, and maybe that's something you might find helpful. Maybe adjusting a couple hours here, a couple hours there. I mean, there's lots of times 4:30 in the morning I'm completely covered up trolling. So, and there's lots of times where 7:30, 8 o'clock at night I'm covered up trolling. So maybe just something to think about. I did a typo. Oh, okay. That must have been for the other question. Yeah, all good. I understand that. I do typos all the time. I don't know. I'm trying to get into these whiskey cubes. I mean, honestly, I think I prefer the regular old ice better, but I don't know. All right, next question. What do we got? I hope I answered that. I hope I answered that full moon question. Because again, for me, it's not really about when. I don't really have the option for the most part of when I want to fish. So it's about making the best out of every day that I have. Same with weather. I get that question about weather. I like lousy weather. There's very little weather that keeps me to the dock because my personal experience is that the fishing is better for the most part to an extent, right? So until it gets to the point where it's so rough that it's basically unfishable, but that's going to be based on kind of on the size of your boat and where you're fishing and how you play it. Sometimes you just have to slow it down. Sometimes you just have to slow it down, when it's rough. I would say that's one thing I've learned over the years too, that I can pass on. A lot of people get really set in their head about a trolling speed. Like, oh, we're not going fast enough. And boy, I'll tell you, we spend so much time in the rough. A lot of trolling speed is more I can hear people rolling their eyes right now, but a lot of trolling speed, in my opinion, is we're trying to present what looks good in our eyes to a fish. Whereas a lot of times, all that really matters is what looks good in a fish's eyes. And what I mean by that is there's so many times that I'll have a lure. We just pull a boat out of gear to try and stop on a pile of fish, and the reels blast off, and the lures were just straight up and down. They weren't even trolling, or it's super rough, and going a knot and a half, 3 knots, blast off a blue marlin. I mean, I've caught lots of blue marlin going 3 knots, 3.5 knots on a jethead or on a mole craft. I pull a mole craft a lot for tunas. I see some people comment once in a while like, "Oh, put the mole craft away," but yes, I catch a lot of marlin on it, but we get a lot of big tunas on mole crafts. They slam those things. The downside, if you're fishing inshore and you don't want anything to do with the marlin, is that marlin do pile up all over them. But man, I'll tell you, 2.5, 3 knots. 3.5 knots, you can definitely catch a marlin going that slow. Oh God, speaking of which, I got a great story about that. So I used to sell fish on the dock. I had a business called Ahi Plus, and basically we sold fish directly to the customers, right? Like people would buy fish and right off the dock. It was a real win-win. It was super good. Like I don't want to get to the politics of the state because it was one of those lousy things where I got shut down on this like the final ruling, right, was that I got shut down on restriction of flow of traffic on a state pier without prior written approval of the harbor master. And that was because when we were tying up, we were getting so many people coming down waiting for the boat to tie up. When it first started, right? Like, so when it first started, and we said, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna sell directly to the people and see how it goes. And when we first started, it actually took off pretty well right off the bat. But say I came in with like 7,500, 8,000 pounds. It took me like 3 days to sell it all. By the end, I could come in and I could sell 8,000 pounds in 6 hours. It was nuts. It was full on. Like it got to the point where if I didn't have fish, I was just, I just send them over to my friends that were doing it as well. It was a great thing. But then, unfortunately, jealousy or politics or whatever got involved, and we weren't allowed to do it anymore. So that was a real shame. But the point of what I was saying with this story is that one of the gentlemen that I sold fish to, he asked me about lures and stuff, and he got a mold craft, and I helped set him up this mold craft, and he wanted to go out trolling, blah blah blah. Long story short, like probably about I don't know, maybe like 5 weeks later, he comes back and he's all excited and he caught his first fish and da 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 da. He caught his first marlin, and I was stoked. I'm thinking like he's going to show me a picture. And I'm thinking he's going to show me like a picture of like 150 pounders. So, he's telling me about this marlin. He caught off a sailboat, blah, 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 blah. I think it was 890 pounds. So, I was just dying laughing. I was just like, there you go. There's a 3.5 or 4 knot Moldcraft takedown too. So sometimes the speed is not as important to the fish as we think it is. We get very caught up with what presentations look like to our eyes. I always say try and make it look the best that you can, what you think the fish wants, but it's not always necessarily what you think that works best. I mean, I've seen that over and over again. Slow. I mean, I don't know. I've had lots of luck slow. I know a lot of the fleet locally has been going faster and faster with the thought process of having a higher hookup ratio. But I would almost argue on the other side that going really slow has a high hookup ratio too. So tomato, I guess. Let's see. This comment says, I look really old. Well, I am getting kind of older, so thanks a lot, hon. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Will your book be on Audible or digital to listen? Yes, it will. I have been so far behind on that, but that should have already been completed, and I haven't done it. But I still have, I think it's 4 more chapters that I need to finish, something like that. But what I did with the book is I also added additional content. So it's not just me reading the same book that you've already read, or I basically have just kind of ad-libbed something to each story, and hopefully improved it. But I know, like personally, when I get like books on tape, I always like the additional background stuff that you don't get. So basically what I've done so far is I've just kind of expanded onto the book. Like, so each chapter kind of has a little bit of additional stuff. And then I changed a couple words where when I read them back to myself, like even though I've been through the book so many times, I read it back to myself and I said, I think this word would sound better. So the audiobook is like basically the same book, couple cleanups on things that I wanted to change, and just some added content. And gonna have a bonus chapter that originally the lawyer said was too risky to put in the book. I figure, what the hell? See what happens. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Yep, no problem, my friend. And let's see. Do I have any other let's see. Just this is not a. Okay, nope. That was a question about crew. I am not currently looking for crew, but I will write him back. I'm not currently looking for crew. I had been looking for a relief captain for quite a while. And I have a gentleman coming out who fished with me named Mike Halls, who fished with me in 2020 in the beginning. I think he went to Alaska around June. Is that about right? Something like that. Maybe June, July, at the end of July, something like that. He went up, maybe June, he went for salmon season. And we've stayed in contact. And he's going to start working with me. And hopefully we'll be able to do a rotation. The crew's been wanting to fish a little bit. Well, not a little bit. The crew wants to fish more. And between just being a dad, my shoulder injury and hand injury, we have not been fishing as much as they would like. So hopefully that's going to be a win-win. Hopefully Mike will be able to get on some fish, and the crew will be able to make more money, and it will be a good all-around situation. Our last 2 out of 3 trips have been great. Trip before was fantastic, and then our next trip was basically a loser. Made a little bit of money, but for those of you who don't know how commercial fishing works, people have different formats, but basically the way I do fishing, about how I pay, is that we take expenses off the top. So whatever like ice, bait, fuel, tackle, anything that was not wear and tear stuff, but like let's say like, broke off lures, or we had a marlin that dumped the whole top shot and we got to dump a lure out, or stuff like that. Like we don't do like if a pump breaks or oil changes or any of that stuff. Some people do, but I don't. I just consider that part of the boat share. And so basically the way it works in most commercial fishing, or at least in my operation, is that we take the expenses off the top, whatever that would be. And then it goes 50-50. And so it goes like boat takes 50% of what's left over. And then I do, we break the rest up into 5 parts. Captain takes 2 shares and a crew each takes 1 share. So that's how I do it anyways. Different people have different ways of doing it. And there's different, sometimes when you have a hired captain, some guys just get paid off the top. I've done that before too. Just if you don't want to have an argument, or not an argument or discussion, sometimes it gets like, is this an expense? Is that an expense? Is this an expense? And, sometimes depending on who's working or what they want to do, what I'll do is we'll just agree with a percentage off the top. And when a trip's really slow, that doesn't work out well for me, but it works out good for them. And when a trip's really big, it works out better for me. And then when a trip's just kind of like average, it just works out about the same, honestly. It's kind of that middle ground. It just depends. Some people, I give everyone that works for me that option. You can either take a percentage off the top, or you can do expenses. Most people generally do expenses because, that when it comes time for a big hit, you're going to get the bigger hit that way. So that's, no need for any, no need for crew right now. What's this message I just got? Are you? No. Some of these are just my friends sending wonderful comments, which I appreciate, but I'm not going to read on the air. Although some days I would. Well, I don't know. That's about all I got for now. Unless you guys got any questions. Anybody got any questions out there? It's Sunday night. I'm not sure that I really have anything else that I wanted to say. just maybe just a big thank you. A big thank you would be good for Jerry. Jerry Gilran is a fisherman from the Hilo side who, in his former past, was an audiovisual guy, and he has been helping me with this. It's been extremely humbling, without a doubt. Like, sometimes when you are good at something or have some relative success at something, you think you're going to get into something else, and it's going to be smoother than it is. I think we've all seen that with fishing, right? Like we've all seen like somebody thinks they're just going to come in and be a gangster, and then a few months later, you never see that guy again because the reality of the business. I was so naive. I thought I would be at the point where I'm at right now. Like I thought that I would be doing this. I thought I would be like in outer space by now with all the stuff that I'm planning on doing. I'll give you guys a little walk around on the studio on my next podcast or something. But I've got 3 cameras here, 3 mics here. I've got a bunch of stuff for going remotely, and the idea is in the future, I want to be doing live podcast off boats and in different ports with different people. I want to take this show every way I can. My hope is that I really want to talk to all fishermen. That's what I love doing. I love the whole fishing community, and I'm hoping that I can continue to build a place for all walks of fishermen. I've always kind of felt like I didn't totally have a home in the fact that, like I've had commercial fishing magazines tell me that I'm too soft into sport fishing. And then I've had sport fishing magazines tell me that that my writing is too neutral against commercial fishing. And I've just thought like, wow, there's so much carryover there. You'll have a sport fisherman who's happy to eat a piece of sashimi at a restaurant. So and then there's lots of commercial fishermen who love to sport fish. Like I love fishing. Like I commercial fish to pay my bills, but my favorite thing to do is put a rod in my hand, And so, I know I'm not alone. I've talked to other people out there, and I'm hoping this will kind of be a good place where we can talk to all those people, both sides. And also, love to have more guests on my shows. If you guys have some guest ideas or you want to come on the show, I will also have very soon, my link should be all set up where we'll be able to connect more people via the web live. And also the recording will still go traditionally like it has been out to the just the audio portion. The audio portion of these will be also put on like Anchor and Spotify, wherever you might be listening to it. So, sounds good, boss. Appreciate that, Jesse. Thank you. Any thoughts on slow ahi bite this year? Awesome stuff. Thanks, Ryan. I would say honestly, it's probably just cyclic. That's my thought for the yellows, and I'll tell you why, because the yellows are such a okay. So we've got big eyes and yellows, right? And this is why I think they should be regulated differently. Okay, so the big eyes, for example, are from all over the place. And I think if any scientist or regulator told you that they knew exactly where the fish were coming from and everything, I would just say they're full of shit. Because as long as I've been doing this now, I think we're into like 8 different fucking models of where they say they're coming from, going from, and it changes and they this and that. But one thing that has been pretty much consistent has always been the yellowfin model, right? The yellowfin more or less stays around Hawaii. Will go up. It goes up, we'll go up towards like Midway. Sometimes they stay a little further up. But basically, our yellowfin, for the most part, are residential, right? Like they go up and down the archipelago. They'll go up and down the island chain. And some years they come down, and some years they don't drop down. right? And so they basically, those fish cycle around the islands on some level, right? The big eyes, they go all over the place, right? It's just like they tag them and they just go everywhere, right? They go in every different place. But the yellowfin, they basically kind of move up and down. So in my opinion, it's probably just something cyclic. The truth is, the main fishing pressure on the yellowfin around Hawaii is pretty minimal because the Hawaiian longline fleet, first of all, doesn't catch very many. That's a misconception a lot of people have. One I had myself when I first got into it. They catch lots of big eyes. That's what they target, particularly once they had to take off the top hooks, like the upper hooks on their line, because of different regulations and deep setting. The Hawaiian longline fleet really does not catch very many yellowfin tuna. They catch a lot of big eyes, but they don't catch many yellows. So, in the whole scheme of things, most of the pressure is really coming from us trollers, hand liners. So I would think it's just cyclic, honestly. I think we'll have some strong runs again because we had some unusual runs this year too. Like the timing was a little bit off. Like there's a few some guys had really, really good years. Like, but they were in like weird places. Like they were just like kind of like at odd times and at weird places. So it wasn't like the yellowfin weren't around. It was like they were in they weren't like in their normal spots, but there were some guys that I know that found them that really did well. Like in March, for example, my boat, I lost my transmission and I was fishing on the inside with these guys. And we caught a lot of ahies for March. Like I think, I don't really want to get too into it, but I think they got 120 big ones like in a month and a half off just this one project they had going. And when I say that, I mean like, all over 100. So I think I think there was more of a cyclic thing than anything. It's a lot like our skipjack tunas. I think a lot of times our skipjacks, now the skipjacks, from my understanding, they go all the way like up to Japan, right? So like that's one thing I think most scientists will tell you they failed on, was early on when there was huge piles of like akus and otatos and everything, they didn't put any effort into tagging them because there were so many around. And then when the numbers went down, then they wished they had. So I think if there was one thing they mismanaged as far as just having a baseline, I don't think they know a whole lot about our aku stocks, except that they know some go up to Japan, and then they know that some of the fish go in the Southwest Pacific. But to me, I've never heard anyone with any great authority really talk about knowing exactly what the skipjack tunas do around Hawaii. So I think it's a cyclic thing on the yellowfin. Also, that is one reason why I always say that if there was a fish to put a bigger size limit on, it would be if you were going to put a size limit on a tuna, right? And maybe they should honestly have them on both. I mean, the size limit in the State's a joke right now, right? Like I think most people can agree the size limit should be bigger for commercial sale. I'm not saying for subsistence fishing. Like if you go out and just want to go out with your family and catch a few fish, for the day to put on the table, well, then I don't really think I don't think there should be a size limit on that. But the problem is that you get into that gray area where people will abuse that. But that being said, the size limit's only 3 pounds in the state of Hawaii, which is almost like saying there is no size limit. Although shockingly to me, I saw a thing that a guy got busted for selling undersized fish on the side of the road. Like that's under 3 pounds. I mean, like it's pretty ridiculous, right? So I'll tell you what's flawed again with the size limit thing though, right? So, and I've run into this for years. Like we keep a lot of smaller fish now that I didn't used to keep because the market has gone that way. And then there was always kind of some boats out that fished around where we were that kept the smaller fish. So literally it would be like, we would let a fish go and the next day, and I'm not like just like literally it would be sometimes the next day that same fish would be caught by another boat keeping smaller fish. So I think that the only way it truly works though, is you have to have a size limit that's totally enforceable across the board. But my thought, and I get some grief about this, but I think really that probably the size limit on a tuna would be like 30 pounds. Like they get there very fast. but again, the hard part is the big eye tuna, they're just passing through, and the yellowfin, I think it'd be a great model for yellowfin, honestly, but it doesn't work unless, everybody's got that size limit. And like I said, myself, I'm guilty of it right now. I keep a lot of small fish because that's where a lot of the market has gone. A lot of the market has gone towards selling fish on the side of the road and things like that. We sell a lot of 15 and 20 pound fish right now. And that's what kept me going through the whole pandemic. So I wouldn't lie about that for a second, but I think if you were just going to do a general size limit, and only because some people have a hard time telling the difference between big eyes and yellows, I think the size limit should be at least 15 pounds. I mean, I have no problem with that. I think, I don't know that size limit makes the most sense as far as like a scientific reason, but I think that's like a decent sized fish to keep and would probably be, a good sized fish for most people. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I do think the size limit's too small. That's just me. And I think really the yellowfin, I think that is just a cyclic occurrence. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions here, guys, before I wrap up? Happy to answer them. Let's see. Let me just check Instagram one more time. See if there's any more comments on there. Do I think color matters? Do I think color matters? Do I think color? Yes. Do I think? I'm a little confused by this question, but I'm pretty sure the question I just got is, do I think color matters on lures? Yes, I do. I think action personally is more important than color, but I would be lying if I told you that there aren't times when it seems like fish go through patterns where they only want a certain color or a certain style lure. One thing, like on my last couple trips, or on my second to last trip, for example, they were puking up these red baits, like that they call like a Gennard. It looks like a little red sardine. And sometimes when the fish get dialed in on those, they seem to be remarkably hard to catch. And so the next trip I went out and I geared up. I rigged everything like in my trolling department the best I could to look like that. And I sized my stuff down and we went out and we cleaned up on that stuff. And so I definitely think adjusting color at times definitely matters. I think there's always these arguments about whether they can see color or not. But I think if nothing else, I think that the color on some level has to look like a shade. I think it has to have some type of difference. Yes, because I'm a big believer of matching the hatch, if you will, just kind of like fly fishing. That old saying, match the hatch. I've seen that enough where sometimes you just one lure will definitely be firing. One color skirt is just on fire. I do believe, though, more often than not, because we kind of use a lot of the same type color patterns, I think action, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, I think action a lot of times is more important. I think sometimes depending on what the fish are dialed in on is more important than just color. I think sometimes if the fish are like dialed in on like say flying fish, I want to have some kind of lure that's, skittering across the top of it, like a bullet that's running on the surface. If I see a lot of real splashy, aggressive yellowfin around, say I'm fishing for like a marlin, I want something like, if there's a lot of yellows jumping around, I want something short that's big and loud, something like a tube bait or a plunger that's really like boom, boom. Um, you know, I think anytime you fish an area, you pick up on different things that works. So yes, I think color matters. I personally believe that shape is more important. I think if you ran every color exactly the same, I think it would be your consistent bites would go towards whatever shape was working best at that time. And fish definitely go through cycles. Like, I I know it's very easy to get locked in on using the same stuff that you caught a fish on in 1989 or whatever and running the same lure over and over again. But for me, I don't think there's any harm uh, in playing with switching up different lures. I can respect and understand, like, okay, this style has been working. All right. Like if I catch a marlin on a lure the day before, it's going to be most likely in the spread the next day. I get that. Right. But to be fair with fishing, with living on the ocean, I can tell you that every day is a new day. So it's nice to have a baseline, but I wouldn't be afraid to change it. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of tunas and the fact that I spend so much time on top of them trying to study kind of their changes. And so the biggest thing I see to making stubborn fish change isn't so much a color per se as it is maybe a style change or a speed change. And sometimes the speed change isn't what you think it's going to be. Like it's not always going to be speeding up. Sometimes it's slowing way down. Like it's amazing how honestly, like I'm saying before, it's amazing how slow they'll eat a fit. They'll eat a lure. Um, I it's probably just like us. Sometimes how aggressive are we, or how eager are we to feed? Will we eat something if it's just sitting there in front of us? Yeah, but are we going to go across town to a store to get something? Not always. So sometimes the presentation, um, we need to try and kind of cater it to like a fish's thought process and less so just ours. Um, Single or double hook rigs? Oh, that's a great question. We get that all the time, don't we? That that is a very heavily debated question, and I know especially with marlin and tunas. Those are like two different thought processes. I know people who swear by double hooks and everything, and I know people who swear by single hooks and everything. Man, I'll tell you personally, I only run single hooks these days, and the commercial side of things, a big part of that is for safety. For one, for safety. Two, I run a lot of smaller stuff because I'm focusing more on tunas, and a lot of the smaller lures that I like to run, particularly slower, again, they just run cleaner and they're not as stiff without the two hooks. I always think teasers are a great example of that, right? If you just run teasers, right, like you're teaser fishing for records and things like that, it's amazing how many bites you get on those things sometimes compared to the stuff out that could be a little bit longer with hooks in it. So in my mind, I'm always kind of thinking like, what is the least amount of hook? What is the least amount of hook that I can have out there and still get the job done effectively? That's kind of always been my thought process on it. It has nothing to do with releasing fish because trust me, commercial fishing, releasing a fish is the fucking last thing on my mind. I had someone comment on one of the sharks that we tagged. They said, "How come you're not using a dehooker?" Well, let me tell you, that is something I definitely do not own. That is not a item that I have on my commercial fishing boat. Dehooking is not high on my priority list. So the single hooks are definitely for safety, but also I think at this point I think I believe they're better. I mean, sometimes when a double hook on a marlin, though, if we're talking about taking one, right? Like let's say we're talking like tournament fishing or something like that. I think sometimes those double hook rigs can just be devastating because you got that second hook flying around, it jams in there, will do some damage. You got, especially, or you get a latch where we'll go over and you'll get it pinned in two places. And sometimes that's just like, game over right off the bat. Also, I mean, Mike Harlan, he's a great fisherman, and he swears by the double hook rigs and his big yellowfin, and his jets. He catches the living shit out of them. So there's somebody on the other spectrum where I like the single hooks, and he catches the hell out of the big ones with double hooks. So I think part of it with any fishing is being confident in what you put out and believing in your system. I think that's a huge part of it, is that whatever you put out, you want to be confident in that system. And then also, depending on what drag you're running, that's going to be probably part of your thought process on a single hook or double hook, and what you're looking to achieve. But me personally, I'm a single hook man. So I hope that answers your question, or hopefully that wasn't too much of a lawyer question. I mean, hopefully that wasn't too much of a lawyer answer. I know that kind of felt like I was going around and around there, but that's a very debatable question. I think the most important part is just to be confident in what you put out and know that, and believe in the system. I think sometimes when we're talking marlin, right? Anyways, that you need to run your whatever hook style you're doing long enough to get a fair sample size, because you can go on a streak with any hook rig and get all 7 in a row or something, but on the same token, you could lose 7 in a row. So I think you need to have a big enough sample basis to really compare that. I think that would be the important part. I think one thing that sometimes fails people is that they go back and forth, and they mix up the hook rigs, and so they never really get a fair sample of what their, say, hook ratio is doing with this amount of drag. Or that would be my only thing, is I fished with a bunch of guys that it doesn't seem like they actually do a long enough or aren't committed enough to the process to really determine what works best for them. So I would say the important part is getting a large enough sample size compared to what you want to do. I hope that answers the question. I don't really I don't really run double hooks in anything except for fangs. Now, I should have asked about that. If you meant fangs, right? Like the double like eagle talon type hooks. Oh yeah, I use that in almost everything. Like for not for my marlin stuff. Although I don't really know why I don't. I don't really have a good reason for that. But for tuna fishing, the fang hooks are awesome. Totally awesome. I run those on all the short hand lines that are cleated off, and then I have those in my dangler hooks. Even single hooks and danglers are good. The benefit to them is that they're easier to take off, but I rather have it take a little bit longer to pull out and not miss quite as many myself. But those double like talon style fang hooks, that style double hook, this is awesome. I tell you, I saw this nasty rig, super dangerous effect for the deckhand, but like wildly efficient from what I saw. The lure didn't run that great, but when you got a bite on it, it was nuts. And my buddy Ryan ran this thing, and it basically was like, was it 4 hooks now? How did this work? It was like a hook on the top, a hook on the bottom. So it was like a hook face up, and then it went down, had a piece of wire, and then it had a swinging hook that like scissored on like each side. So there was like 4 hooks, like, so it swung, and it didn't get a lot of bites, but man, the things would be like wildly hooked. It was like super dangerous. Like, I mean, if you got like a Mai or something, it was like, I mean, I would have called the rig like the emergency room rig, because like he had told me like some of his deckhands, like it's like, oh yeah, if you get, unexperienced guys that, usually you end up having to cut it out of their legs. I'm like, well, that doesn't really sound like the best system to me. But I would say that those double fang hooks, for certain applications, are awesome. I don't really even have a good reason why we don't use them marlin fishing. I don't even have a good reason. I mean, maybe that's something we should do more of. Maybe we should experiment with that more. I don't know why we don't, honestly, because the hookup ratio on them is generally really good. So, well, a lot of great questions, you guys. I'm just check one more time, and if not, I'm gonna call it evening. It's 9:35. I'm going to finish my drink, and yeah, well, great. I just want to thank you guys for joining my first live stream, and I appreciate the questions. It means a lot to me. And just a friendly reminder, if you haven't bought my book yet, it's still available on Amazon. And also want to thank sponsor. Oh, I have to mention that. I keep cutting it out, and maybe I'll work on this with in the future with having more stuff written down. I want to thank all you guys for entering the contest, the Vicious Cycle Whiskey, Women, and Water contest sweepstakes. Our winner was a woman named Juanita from Connecticut, and she'll be taking her, I want to say it's fiance, boyfriend or fiance. Maybe it's just boyfriend. I don't know. I don't want to speak for her. She won the trip for the sweepstakes for a 5-day stay, 3-day charter on the Northern Lights with Captain Kevin Nakamura and me as your crew. And so they'll be coming out here. We're still finalizing the dates, but they got first place. And so I definitely got to give a shout out to all you guys. Thank you so much for entering it. I really appreciate it. Thanks for spreading the word, and thanks for all those entries. Got some great photos out there. Also, just a great, big thank you to Kevin on the Northern Lights. Again, if you are thinking about coming to Kona, Hawaii, and you're looking at a charter and you're not sure who you want to go with, I have so many friends that are charter fishermen here. It gets very difficult. That I don't believe there's a per se best charter fisherman. There are lots of people who offer different things, and are maybe good with certain set of people, personality type things like that. Lots and lots of great fishermen here. So I don't think you could ever do like, oh, there isn't one standout best fisherman. There's a lot of great fishermen here. I always kind of say like Kona is a place where old fish and old fishermen come to die, because you can fish here for a long time because of the ease of the weather and the calm seas. So you have a lot of experience here. There's a lot of great fishermen here. But the reason I did do the sweepstakes with Kevin is because what was happening is that I kept getting people that would send me requests on Instagram asking like who I'd go fishing with. And the truth is, for most of the requests I got, the Northern Lights would be my recommendation because it's not just that he's a great marlin fisherman, because he is. I mean, the guy has caught everything, and we're going to get him on the show really soon. He's been busy with the summertime, having charters and redoing a new boat. They got another boat, and so he's been slammed. But we're going to get him on here, and people can hear for themselves just how incredibly accomplished this guy is. And so I think people will see why after listening and talking to him. He's so professional. He's not just a great marlin fisherman, but he's a good tuna fisherman, great mai fisherman. He's just a great all-around fisherman. And so when I decided to do the sweepstakes, I really said to myself, well, who would I want to go charter fishing with? And it's the same people that it's the same person that I send charters to unsolicited. So I'm glad that we were able to work that out. Again, so many great charters here in Kona, but huge shout out to Northern Lights Fishing for providing that for the winner of the trip. I just got to say thank you. They're great. And that is can I say the N word in here? That is definitely not appropriate. I don't think, no. I mean, I don't think that can't be Nakamura. I mean, talking about Kevin's last name, or is that like somebody trolling me right now? It's just a prank, bro. Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyways, yep. Kevin. So big shout out to Kevin. Big shout out to all you guys. Thank you so much. If you like the podcast and you want to watch in the future, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, and I look forward to continuing to take this to the next place. And again, if you guys have good recommendations for guests you want to be on the show, please send me a private message, direct message on my Instagram account. That's the best way to get a hold of me for anything podcast related, and that is Vicious Cycle Fishing. So thank you very much, guys. Aloha. I appreciate your time, and cheers.